Well, I've now put another memory stick in the camera. Where was I? I can't make this much longer because I don't want to be using up all the memory sticks. I've already done 20 minutes. Yeah. Boarding school. Fire extinguisher in the face, wasn't it? Yes. As I said, that led to me going into care homes, and because of my problems with incontinence and what have you, I was deemed a not very nice, a dirty child, as I was called by one of them. I can recall I was kicked out because my social worker, Miranda Adcock, her name was at the time, refused, for whatever purpose or reason, refused to acknowledge I had problems with neurosis and bedwetting and daytime accidents, and was using the pads. She refused to acknowledge this. My first foster parent, Val, was the person who first got me help with it and got me what we call the all-in-one pads, nappies, whatever you want to call them. That was the first person to ever do anything about it. Before that, I was actually trying to self-cope and hide things to do with it all, and I used to actually sit there and bind baby nappies onto my body with sellotape. I used to go through reels upon reels of sellotape. My hips to this day are still scarred permanently from where the sellotape went into a thin twine and used to cut into me. If you actually get a strip of sellotape and pull it, you'll see it stretches into like a thin twine of plastic wire before it snaps. Even more so, it gets more and more stronger if you wrap 2 or 3 layers on top of one another and pull it like that. So if you imagine him wrapping it in a circle around your waist tightly to hold something like that in place. Oh, it does damage. It does a lot of damage. It sticks to you, it rips out hair, other bits and pieces. It's not comfortable at all. But at the time, I had no real choice. I had to hide it. It was something that I was embarrassed about. She got me the help, and I was able to self-cope. I was able to hide things to a degree and control it. A lot of it back then was psychological, not physical. Stress and depression was a big factor. The more depressed I got, the more hard it was for me to control my bodily functions. It took a lot of concentration. A lot of mind power, but if I concentrated hard enough, I could control it still. It just took a lot of doing, especially when I was on a down point, which obviously being in and out of care, if anyone's ever been in social services care, they'll know care homes and places like that are just not nice places. But yeah, I ended up in and out of care for a bit. I ended up with several foster placements. Unfortunately, Val became too ill to carry on looking after me. She helped with the incontinence side, but she couldn't cope with the fact that I got into with the wrong crowd back then. I was out till 10, 11 o'clock some nights, and the worry and angst of knowing where I was and what I was up to. Especially when I got involved with a crowd that ended up starting to steal motorbikes and things like that, and shoplift. It was too much for her to bear, so she gave up looking after me, and I was moved placements after about 3-4 months of being there, which was bad. I'd just settled in. As soon as I got my feet basically under the table, it was time to go again. The next placement, there was I was there a matter of hours because of my incontinence. Miranda didn't tell my new foster placement the issue. She was a woman who had a room with 2 bunk beds in. She had 3 other kids there, other boys, mid-teens. One was 17, I think, and they all shared a room. Yeah, I got in there, they sorted us out. She told me to stay in my room and unpack, which was a shared room with the others. The problem came when it came to bedtime. that evening, a few hours after I'd been there. And the other guys were all in bed in their pyjamas and that, and she said to me, "Oh, why don't you go and get into your pyjamas and head to bed?" And I said, "Well, one, I haven't got any pyjamas, and two, where do I sort myself out? Because obviously the other guys are in the room. I can't do that in there. I don't really want them knowing." And she said, "Well, what do you mean, sort yourself out?" Confused and bemused by my question. So, of course, I said about the incontinence, and I was in an all-in-one nappy at that point that was pretty knackered and needed changing. She, upon seeing it, just for whatever reasons, totally lost it. Said I was a disgusting little boy and she would not have that filth in her house. How dare I bring that on her? How dare I show her that? How dare I bring that incident and that problem into her house? How dare I even think of it? What was I doing? I was a sick-minded individual and I needed professional help. My bag was packed and I was thrown out the door at 9 o'clock at night. In the pouring rain, in the middle of November. I had nowhere to go, nothing to eat, no money, no nothing. At 14, with those problems. I couldn't believe it. I tried ringing my social worker from a payphone after borrowing 50p off somebody I didn't know in the street. I begged for it and got the money to phone. It was pointless ringing any member of my family. My nan at that point was working at a boarding school down in Ascot as a matron herself, so she wasn't there. My granddad was in Devon, running 2 businesses and trying to make ends meet, and was never at home. My mum and Kevin, truth be told, I don't actually know, but I wasn't prepared to go back there for anybody. So that was me on my own. I ended up managing to straighten myself out and change in a public toilet I found open. Not the nicest of experiences, but there you go. And I walked the streets, I walked the length and breadth of Cosham all night. Finally coming to rest outside the front doors of the social services offices at 6 a.m. that morning. I sat there right through to 8:30 a.m. when the doors opened and Miranda was finally there. She found me sat there as she entered the building herself to start work. When asked what had happened, I told her I once again was told off and reprimanded and scolded for being the one in the wrong, for having this one problem. So I was put into another placement. This time it was into Stonecroft Kids Home, a place where the best way of describing Stonecroft in my mind, a reject bin for teenagers with troubles that nobody wants to accept. That's the only words I can use for that place, a reject bin. Why do I call it a reject bin? Because you had car thieves, you had shoplifters, thugs that would just go around punching people for the sheer hell of it, who hated their own mothers and would quite happily smack their own mums or brothers and sisters and siblings in the face. It was a nasty, nasty place. I walked in there, and no sooner I'd been in there, my dormitory was stripped of anything I had of value by the other kids. If I went to say anything, I'd get smacked to pieces and punched in the face. It was a regular occurrence. I'd walk out with a fat lip or a black eye out of that place every single day I was fucking there. No, I didn't fight back. I didn't know how to. The fear of God, of being hit, had been put into me by what I'd gone through with Kevin, so I didn't fight back. I daren't. Peer pressure got the better of me and I was forced to rob or face being kicked in every day. So I used to spend my days touring the length and breadth, bunking trains to different towns around the Hampshire and Winchester area, going into the local boot stores and Argoses, stealing Walkmans and Discmans, only to bring them back enough and taken off of me by the other kids for them to sell or use for themselves. If I brought the wrong one back, I'd get a kick in. If I brought the right one back, I'd still get a kick in and they'd still take it off me. I couldn't win. That became my life. So I ran away. I ran away with one of the other boys there from the kids' home. There was probably a quiet and timid person, not quite as timid as me, for reasons unknown, because I was slightly bigger and taller. Idolised me some way. I don't know. It's the only person there that knew the true me and knew about my incontinence issues, but it actually fucking accepted them. The head, the actual owner, Mrs. Souche, her name was, Dee Souche. At one point, I went to her, I went to my mum and told my mum what she'd done, and I wasn't believed by my own family. I was not believed. She actually went and, in front of all the kids in the thing, turned around and basically outright at the dining table in front of all of them, which had them absolutely in stitches at me, as well as kicking the fuck out of me for the next 3 days, turned around and openly said, oh look, well he's got room to talk, he can't control himself because he's nothing but a baby because he still wears nappies. The amount of times in my life my incontinence has been thrown at me in a negative way, I have fucking lost count of. I really have. But yes, that's something she did. But I ran away with this boy and we ended up in the Isle of Wight. And sandy beaches of Shanklin. We bunked the hovercraft over. We managed to get the money and get over there. We had no money to get back. And we met these two guys one afternoon, funnily enough, walking around the arcades. Oh, excuse me. And they befriended us and they took us back. And one of them had a flat they weren't staying in. Now, I wasn't all queued up on the whole gay scene or anything back then. It was all still sort of... I knew of it, but I'd never really experienced it or seen a couple together or anything like that. And one of them, they started having a big row, and I couldn't for the love of God figure out why. And we stayed there for 2 days in this flat. We had them give us money and everything. Food, warmth, shelter. It was good. It was really good. And we were very appreciative of this, the kind gesture. But like most things in life, that gesture doesn't come without a price. I soon found out what that price was. Why they were arguing was because one of the guys fancied me. And he had already had words with his partner about having his wicked way with me. So while Stuart, the kid that I'd run away with, was out one afternoon, he came round to see how we were getting on. And originally he started out really nice and talking to me calmly and peacefully. But then the true demeanour of why he was there came out. Before I knew what was going on, he had me pinned against the wall, was kissing me, and had his hand down my trousers, much to my fright and shock. I can still feel the stubble and whiskers of his moustache he had at the time against my lips. It's horrible, really horrible. He wanted me to pull my trousers down so he could have intercourse with me. I got out of there luckily. I managed to pull away. I fobbed him off with some story of feeling slightly sick and needing to go and get a drink, at which point his actual partner he was with at the time came in the room, and obviously they had a blazing row and left. Stuart, meanwhile, turned up about 15-20 minutes later while these two were gone arguing. Me and him literally grabbed everything we could of value out of the flat and the place we were staying at and made headway for the hovercraft back to Portsmouth. There's about 60-70 quid in cash on the mantelpiece we stole. A couple of other silverware items that Stuart wanted for reasons even to this day I don't know, and a watch, a silver watch. I don't actually know what happened to the watch, I can't remember. But I remember taking it, I remember feeling bad, but even more so for what he'd done to me. It leaves a bitter taste even to this day in my mouth. So yeah, but I've gone on for long enough. I've done a lot of blogging. The truth of the matter is, but there you go, even on the sexual nature, I was feminine, obviously, to gay guys. I still am. That wasn't the first and only issue of incidences like it. There were others. Yeah, there were others. So yeah, I need to get off the camera really now. I have said a hell of a lot, and I've also gone wrong. I've actually gone straight on when I needed to go right. So yes, I have just absolutely ballsed myself up on this journey. I'm now having to try carving up a wagon to get across. I do apologise, this is not good. That was my own fault. I do apologise for that, guys. That was my own fault. But yes, it's time to go. It's time to concentrate on what I'm doing. I hope I haven't upset anybody too much with the prolonged drone of my voice and the revelations I have. But back to the factor in question. Sexual abuse and gender identity are a very hard thing to talk about. I admire anybody that has those issues. I sympathise with you fully. I'm happy to take comments and any questions as well regards any of this. If there's anything I've inspired from anybody to do, from doing this, or anything that's connected, same as I did with some of the things that Jane was saying last night, there's a definite connection there, and I felt so warm to her about it. The only thing I wanted to do was give a physical hug and just say, I understand, I'm so sorry you've gone through that. I'm so sorry you have that daily struggle and battle and those demons to fight. Yeah. Anyway, this has been vlog 1 of 2014. Very hard one to do. An honest one, but very hard. Hope you've enjoyed it. I will be back soon with other things, but for now it's time for me to go. Take care, guys. See you soon. Love to all.